The night was heavy with rain. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the streets were almost empty. Only the sound of water hitting the broken ground could be heard. The lamps were weak, flickering as if they were scared of the storm. It was the kind of night where people stayed inside, doors locked, lights off. But in that cold rain, a figure was running, small, fragile, shaking with every step. An alien girl with glowing marks on her cheeks and long, wet hair. She was barefoot, her feet splashing. In puddles, her eyes were filled with tears that mixed with the rain. She was looking for someone, calling softly through the storm. And then she saw him, a human, carrying a small bag, walking down the lonely street. He looked tired, as if he had just finished a long day. His coat was old, but he walked steady. When she saw him, her heart jumped. She cried out, her voice breaking. "Please, human, please wait," she shouted. Her voice was desperate. The human stopped, surprised. He turned and saw her running toward him, her thin body shaking, her hands reaching out, her eyes glowing softly in the darkness. She almost fell, but she kept running until she reached him. She grabbed his sleeve, holding it with trembling fingers. "Please follow me home," she begged. Her words came with heavy breaths, her chest rising and falling fast. The human blinked, confused. He had seen aliens before, but never like this. Not one so young, so broken, so full of fear. "What's wrong?" he asked. But she only shook her head. "No time, please. You must come, you must see," she whispered. Her voice was soft but full of pain. The rain poured harder, running down her face like endless tears. The human hesitated. He was tired and it was late. But there was something in her eyes, something that cut straight into his chest. It was not just fear. It was something deeper. It was the cry of someone who had carried too much. He could not walk away. "All right," he said at last. "Show me." The girl pulled his hand quickly, almost dragging him forward. Her fingers were ice cold, her grip weak yet desperate. She led him into the narrow street, the rain falling, harder around them. The sound of water echoed between the tall broken buildings. Trash floated in the puddles and shadows moved on the walls. The girl kept looking over her shoulder, as if someone was watching them. Her breathing was sharp. Her steps uneven, but she did not stop. She could not stop. The human followed, his eyes scanning the dark corners. He felt the danger in the air, the strange silence of the world. He wondered what could make her so desperate. Her small body trembled with every step, yet she pushed forward. Her tears did not stop. Her voice cracked again. "They need help, please. I can't do this alone," she cried. Her words shook him. Who was they, and what was waiting at her home? The human's heart grew heavy. The rain soaked his clothes, but he no longer cared. Something inside told him that this night was about to change his life forever. The girl stumbled once, nearly falling. The human caught her arm, steadying her. "You'll be all right, I'm here," he said. Her wide eyes looked up at him. For a second, hope flickered in them. But then she pulled again, leading him faster. Through the rain, through the broken streets they ran. The human's mind raced. Why him? Why did she run to him, a stranger? But the answer was simple. Sometimes in the darkest night, a heart knows who it can trust. And she had chosen him. They passed a street where windows were boarded, doors were broken, and walls were covered with old signs. The smell of rust and wet stone filled the air. The human realized this was not a place where anyone should live. But the girl kept running, her hand clutching his tightly. At last, they stopped in front of a narrow alley, dark and silent, the rain dripping from pipes above. The girl looked back at him with pleading eyes. "This way," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. The human nodded, his heart already tied to her pain. Without thinking, he followed her into the darkness. The rain grew quieter behind them. The world outside faded. Now only the sound of their footsteps remained. The girl's sobs echoed between the walls. The human walked close, ready for anything. He did not know what he would see at the end, but he knew one thing. This night was no longer about him. It was about her, and whatever waited in the place she called home. The alley was narrow. Dark water dripped from broken pipes. Old bricks leaned as if they were about to fall. The rain outside still roared, but inside the alley, the world grew quiet. Only the echo of footsteps and the sound of shallow breathing filled the space. The alien girl pulled him forward. Her small hand clutched his as if she feared he would vanish. Her feet splashed through puddles, her steps quick but unsteady. The human followed, his eyes sharp, watching every shadow. The walls closed in around them, and the night felt heavier. The silence was strange. No voices, no dogs barking, no sound of machines. It was as if the alley itself was holding its breath. The human could feel danger in the air, something unseen, something waiting, but he kept walking, because the girl's tears guided him more than his fear. She glanced back often, her glowing eyes full of worry. Her lips whispered, "Faster, we must not stop." The human nodded, though he did not yet understand. He tightened his grip on her hand, steadying her when she stumbled. Her body trembled from cold and exhaustion, but she did not slow down. Every corner of the alley seemed alive. Shadows stretched and twisted. Broken signs creaked above their heads. A rat darted across, its wet fur shining for a moment. The human's heart beat faster, not because of the rat, but because the girl flinched at even that small sound. What kind of fear was she carrying that even the smallest noise made her shake? They passed a gate, rusted and chained. Behind it, the human saw piles of broken crates, some painted with alien symbols he did not understand. The girl avoided looking at it, pulling him faster. He noticed her breathing grow harder. Her sobs mixed with each breath. He wanted to ask questions, but he held them back. Sometimes silence was safer than words. The ground turned rough. Sharp stones cut into the girl's bare feet. She winced, but kept moving. The human could see trails of red mixing with rain. Blood. From her feet, his jaw tightened, anger building in his chest, but he said nothing. He only walked closer. If she fell, he would carry her. "Almost there," she whispered. Her voice cracked like broken glass. Her eyes darted left and right. The human realized she was not just afraid of the place they were going. She was also afraid of who might be following. He turned his head once, scanning behind them. The alley stretched into darkness, silent. But he felt it too. The weight of invisible eyes. The girl led him past another corner. Here, the walls were covered in strange graffiti, symbols drawn in, glowing paint, some human, some alien, warnings, or maybe marks of gangs. The human frowned. He had seen such things before in the city's underbelly, places where law did not reach, places where the forgotten were trapped. Now he understood. The girl lived here in this maze of silence and fear. Suddenly she stopped. Her small shoulders shook and she pressed her back against the wall. She pulled him close. "Quiet," she mouthed, her glowing eyes wide with panic. The human froze, listening, and then he heard it. The soft scrape of metal against stone, a sound too sharp to be the rain. Someone was nearby, hiding in the dark. The human's hand clenched into a fist. He stepped slightly forward, ready to shield the girl. But the sound faded, drifting away into the storm outside. The girl let out a shaky breath. She whispered again, "We cannot be seen, not by them." Her fear was real, not a child's imagination. The human nodded, his chest heavy. If they were out there, then this alley was more dangerous than he had thought. They moved again, faster this time, her steps desperate. The human's boots splashed hard against the water. The walls around them seemed endless, as if the alley would never end. But then, at last, the girl slowed. She pointed ahead with a trembling hand. "There," she said softly, her voice breaking. Through the rain and shadows, the human saw a door, a broken metal door at the end of the path, its surface rusted, dented, almost falling apart. The sight of it made the girl cry harder, as if even looking at her home tore her heart apart. The human's throat tightened. Something inside told him. Whatever was behind that door was the reason she ran through the storm, and the reason she begged for his help. The girl wiped her face with shaking fingers. She looked up at him, whispering, "Please don't leave when you see." Her words stabbed deep into his chest. What was she hiding? What pain waited behind that door? The human placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I'm here," he said, his voice firm. "Show me." She nodded slowly. Her small hand reached for the broken handle. Her tears fell again as the rain dripped from her hair. The human stood close, ready for whatever darkness waited inside. The silence of the alley wrapped around them like a curse, and with a weak push, the girl opened the door, revealing the truth of her home. The door groaned as it opened. Its rusty hinges screamed like a dying voice. The sound echoed down the alley, sharp and heavy. The alien girl flinched at the noise, as if it carried memories she wished to forget. Her small hands pushed harder, the metal scraping against the stone floor. The human stepped closer, his shadow falling across her trembling figure. Inside was only darkness, a cold, heavy darkness that smelled of rot and damp earth. The air pushed against him like a weight. It carried the stench of mold, of sickness, of something broken. The human narrowed his eyes, letting them adjust to the gloom. What he saw at first was only shapes, scattered and lifeless. But then, as his sight sharpened, he realized those were not shapes. They were beds, if they could be called that. Wooden boards, blankets torn, cloth too thin to fight the cold. The girl stepped inside, slowly, her glowing eyes caught in the faint light leaking from the alley. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "This is home." The words stabbed him deeper than any blade. He followed her, his boots echoing against the wet floor. The sound was too loud in the silence. It felt wrong, as if this place did not belong to the world outside. As his vision cleared, he saw them. Small figures curled under the rags. Children, alien children, their skin pale, their cheeks sunken. Their glowing eyes blinked weakly at the sound of footsteps. One tried to sit up, but his body shook too much. Another coughed, a dry, painful sound that echoed in the hollow room. The girl knelt beside the nearest child. She touched his forehead gently, whispering words of comfort. Her tears rolled down again, dripping onto the dirty blanket. The child looked at her, then at the human. His eyes widened slightly, as if he could not believe someone had followed her here. The human's heart clenched. He had seen poverty before, but not like this, not this deep, not this cruel. The roof above was cracked, rain leaked through, dripping into small pots placed on the ground. Some were already full, water mixing with dirt. The walls were stained, crawling with mold. This was not a home, this was a cage, yet this was where they lived. This was what she had wanted to show him. The girl stood again, her shoulders shaking. She looked at the human with eyes that begged for understanding. "They have nothing," she whispered. "No one comes here. No one helps. We are forgotten." Her voice was raw, as if she had spoken these words too many times in her own head. But never out loud tonight. She had finally found someone to hear them. The human stepped deeper into the room. He looked at each small face, each pair of glowing eyes staring at him with silent hope. He could see the bones under their skin, the weakness in their hands as they reached toward him. It was too much for his heart to carry. How long had they suffered like this? How long had the world outside pretended not to see? He crouched down, meeting the gaze of the child nearest to him. The boy's lips moved, soft and broken. "Food?" he whispered. The human felt his chest tighten. He reached into his bag, pulling out the small bread he had saved for his own dinner. He broke it in half, placing it into the boy's hands. The child stared at it, then at him. Tears filled his glowing eyes. He bit into it quickly, too hungry to wait. Another child crawled closer, watching. The human gave the other half to her. She held it carefully, as if afraid it might vanish. The girl stood behind them, her hands pressed against her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, not because of the bread, but because for the first time in a long time, someone had cared enough to give. The human looked up at her, his eyes heavy with sorrow. Now he understood why she had run through the rain, why she had begged him to follow. This was not just her pain. This was her family's pain. The human rose slowly. He looked around the room once more. The broken door, the leaking roof, the coughing children. It was more than just sadness. was injustice. It was a wound carved deep into the lives of the forgotten, and standing there he knew, if he left tonight he would never forgive himself. The girl walked to him, her small hand grabbing his coat. She looked up with desperate eyes. "Don't leave," she whispered. "Please, not after seeing them." Her words struck him like thunder. He bent down, placing his hand gently on her shoulder. His voice was steady, though his heart was breaking. "I'm not leaving," he said, and for the first time since they met, the girl smiled, faint, but real. It was a smile born from hope that maybe, just maybe, the nightmare could end. The broken door creaked again in the wind. It sounded almost like a warning, as if the world outside would not allow peace to remain here for long. But the human no longer cared. He had already made his choice. This was the beginning of something he could not turn away from, and deep inside he knew. The hardest part of the night was still to come. The human stood in the center of the broken room. The rain outside tapped through cracks in the ceiling. Drops fell into metal pots, making soft, hollow sounds. The smell of damp wood and sickness filled his lungs. Every corner was alive with shadows. Yet those shadows were not empty. They hid eyes, small glowing eyes staring at him with fear and hunger. The girl whispered, "Come," and pulled his sleeve gently. She led him to the far side of the room. There, more children huddled together, some too weak to stand, some coughing into their thin blankets. One was so young his face was hardly dry of tears. Another sat with knees pulled to his chest, shivering though the room was warm from so many bodies. They were ghosts of children, alive, yet fading. The human's chest grew tight. He had seen cruelty. But this was different. This was quiet suffering, the kind that lived in silence, the kind that broke hearts slowly, without screams. He could not take his eyes away from them. Each one looked at him with silent pleading, as if his very presence meant hope, as if he was not a stranger but the answer to a prayer whispered too many times. The girl sat among them, her arms wrapping around two of the smallest. They leaned against her shoulders, closing their eyes. She whispered soft words in her own tongue, her voice gentle like a song. The children calmed, even if only for a moment. Then she looked back at the human, tears glistening on her cheeks. "They wait every day," she said, "for someone to come, but no one ever does." The human knelt down, resting one hand on the ground. The floor was wet, the boards broken. This place was not safe. It was not meant for life, and yet life was here, fighting, holding on. He swallowed hard. They shouldn't live like this, he whispered to himself. But the girl heard him. Her lips trembled. "We have no choice." One of the older children tried to rise. He looked barely older than the girl, but his body was frail, his arms thin as sticks. He stood unsteady, his glowing eyes fierce, though his body was weak. He pointed at the human and asked, "Will you hurt us too?" The human froze. The question stabbed deeper than any blade. He shook his head firmly. "No, never," he said, his voice steady. "I came because she asked. I came because you need help." The boy studied him for a moment, then sank back down, too weak to argue, but his eyes softened as if part of him wanted to believe. The girl placed her hand on the boy's shoulder. "He's different," she whispered. He listened. The human reached into his bag again, pulling out what little food he still had, a few dried fruits, another piece of bread. It was not much, but he broke it into many small pieces, passing them carefully into each set of hands. The children clutched the food as if it was treasure. Some ate quickly, others held it close, saving it for later. The human's throat tightened. He wished he had more. He wished he could give them everything. The girl's eyes never left him. She saw how he gave away his own share, how he ate nothing himself, and something inside her heart changed. For years, she had carried the burden, alone. Now, for the first time, someone carried it with her. But the shadows did not only hide children. In the corner, a broken chair leaned against the wall. Beside it lay clothes too big for the children. Torn, blood-stained, the human noticed, and his jaw hardened. "Who wore these?" he asked softly. The girl looked down, her voice small. "Our parents before they were taken." The silence that followed was heavy. The human felt anger rise in his chest. Taken, not lost, not dead, but taken. By who, and for what? He wanted to ask, but the children's eyes begged him not to press. They had already seen too much. He let the silence stay. The girl wiped her tears. She stood again, facing him, her voice shaking, but brave. "You see now, this is why I ran. This is why I begged you." Her hand clutched at her chest. "They won't survive much longer, not like this." Her words cracked. "But if you walk away, then it will be over. They will fade, and no one will ever know we lived at all." The human looked around once more, at the shadows, at the thin bodies, at the broken walls. He knew she was right. If he left, no one would ever come. No one would remember these children. No one would even know they existed. His fists clenched, his decision already forming inside his heart. He stepped closer to the girl, his voice calm but strong. "You're not alone anymore," he said. The words hit her like fire. Her lips trembled, her knees almost gave way. She pressed her hands to her face and cried, not with despair this time, but with relief. The shadows of the home shifted. The storm outside still raged, but inside, in this broken place, for the first time in years, there was light. Not from the lamps, not from the roof, but from a single promise, a human promise, and a fragile hope that would not die. The room was silent for a moment. Only the storm outside dared to make a sound. But then, from the shadows, a soft whimper rose. One child began to cry, his thin body shaking under a torn blanket. The sound spread like fire. Another started, and then another. Soon the room was filled with the cries of little ones. It was not the cry of mischief or fear. It was the cry of hunger, the cry of pain, the cry of children who had learned too young that the world was cruel. The human froze, his chest heavy. Each cry felt like a knife to his heart. He had heard the screams of battle before, but this sound was worse, because this sound was soft, weak, fading. The sound of those who did not even have the strength to scream loud. The alien girl moved quickly. She knelt beside them, wrapping her arms around two of the smallest. She whispered soothing words, though her voice broke with every syllable. Her tears fell onto their heads. She rocked them gently as if her arms could protect them from the world. But the cries did not stop. They grew louder, sharper, desperate, the sound of survival clinging to life. The human could not stand still. He reached into his bag again, but there was nothing left. Only crumbs at the bottom. He clenched his fists. For the first time in years, he felt powerless. What good was strength? What good was skill? If he could not silence the cries of starving children. One small girl crawled to him, her glowing eyes wide, her cheeks hollow. She tugged at his sleeve. Her tiny voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, food." The human's heart broke. He dropped to his knees, taking her fragile hands in his. His voice shook. "I'm sorry, little one. I have nothing more." The girl stared at him, her lips trembling. Then she pressed her forehead against his chest. Her tears soaked into his coat. It was not rejection, it was trust, as if even without food she believed he would find a way. The alien girl looked at him, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. "This is every night," she whispered. "They cry until their voices vanish. Then they sleep in silence. And when morning comes, they are weaker than before." Her body shook. "I cannot stop it. I cannot give them what they need. That is why I begged you, because I have nothing left, only hope." The human felt his throat tighten. He looked around at the faces, each child staring, waiting, not because he had food, but because he was different, because he had come, because he had not turned away. Their cries were more than hunger. They were a question only he could answer. Would he stay? Or would he leave like all the others? The human took a deep breath. He stood slowly, his shadow stretching across the broken walls. He looked at the girl, then at the children, and his voice rang strong in the silence. I will not leave you. The words carried weight. The children quieted for a moment. Their glowing eyes widened, even the girl froze, her lips parting in shock. He knelt again, softer this time. He touched the small shoulders, one by one. You will eat, he said. You will live. I will find a way. Each word was a promise, a seed planted in the darkness. The girl's tears came harder, but this time they were different. They carried relief. Her heart had carried this burden for so long. Now she felt it lift, even if only a little, because someone had finally shared it. But the cries did not vanish completely. The smallest ones were still restless. One coughed so hard it rattled his chest. Another curled tighter, moaning softly. The human placed his hand on the coughing child's back. The heat under his palm was too strong. Fever. The child was sick, not just hungry, but close to death. The human looked at the girl sharply. How long has he been like this? She shook her head, wiping her face. 3 days, maybe 4. Her voice cracked. I tried to find medicine, but no one would give it. Not to us. Not to people like us. The human's jaw tightened. Rage burned in his chest. The world outside had abandoned them, but he would not. He would not let these cries be the last sound these children made. He stood again, stronger this time. I will get food. I will get medicine, he said. His voice was fire in the cold room. The girl looked at him, hope flickering in her tired eyes. You mean it? He nodded, his gaze firm. On my life, I mean it. The children had no strength to cheer, but their eyes spoke for them. The crying softened, not because the hunger was gone, but because for the first time, they believed someone was fighting. For them, the storm outside roared louder. The broken door rattled in the wind, but inside, in the heart of the shadows, a promise had been made, a promise that would change everything. The cries of the little ones had broken a human heart, and from that broken heart, a new strength was born. The human sat on the cold floor, his back against the broken wall. The children huddled together around dim candles, their shadows stretched. Long across the cracked boards, the storm outside had grown quiet, but inside the silence was heavier than thunder. The alien girl sat near him, her arms wrapped around the smallest child, her eyes fixed on the human, waiting. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to ask, but fear held her back. She had been disappointed too many times, her heart no longer trusted promises. The human looked at the faces before him, thin, pale, exhausted, yet glowing faintly with the fire of life. He closed his eyes for a moment. He had lived through many battles, but tonight, in this broken shelter, he faced a war unlike any other, not with weapons, but with hunger and sickness. A war fought in silence. He opened his eyes again, and he spoke, his voice calm but firm. I will not let you fade. The children lifted their heads. Even the weakest listened. His words were simple, but they carried weight. The weight of truth. The girl's tears welled again. She whispered. Others said this before, but when morning came, they were gone. They left us. They left me to carry all of it alone. Her voice cracked like glass. Her arms tightened around the small child. Her glowing eyes searched his face, as if begging him not to become another ghost in her memory. The human leaned forward. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder, and his words came like fire in the cold. I am not them. I will stay. I will fight for you. The children's breaths slowed. The sound of crying faded. Not because their hunger had vanished, but because hope was louder now. For the first time in years, hope sat among them, in the shape of a weary man with a human heart. The girl whispered softly, Why would you do this? You don't know us, you owe us nothing. Her voice was weak, but her question was strong. It was the question she had buried in her chest for years. The human looked at her, his face, tired but steady. Because no one deserves to be forgotten. Because no child deserves to cry themselves to sleep. Because if I walk away, then I am no better than those who left you here. His words filled the room like light breaking into a cave. The girl's lips parted, her eyes shimmered, and for the first time she believed, the human rose slowly. He looked around at the broken walls, the roof leaking, the air heavy with sickness. He clenched his fists. "This is not a home," he said, "but I will make sure you find one, I swear it." The children shifted. One coughed weakly. Another whispered something in a tongue he did not understand, but the meaning was clear. They were thanking him, with eyes too tired to smile, but hearts too desperate not to hope. The girl finally spoke again, her voice small but steady. "You promise?" The human bent down to her level, his eyes locked with hers. "I promise," he said. "On my life, on my name, I promise you." She stared at him. Her tears fell silently, but her lips curled into the smallest smile. A fragile smile. A smile that carried years of pain and years of waiting. It was the smile of someone who had finally found a reason to breathe. The human sat back down. He leaned against the wall once more. The children slowly settled into uneasy sleep, their small bodies curling together for warmth. The girl sat beside him, her head resting lightly against his arm, her voice almost a whisper. "You don't know what this means to us." The human looked down at her, his eyes heavy. "I don't need to know. I only need to act." The candles flickered, shadows danced across the ruined walls, and in the darkness of that broken place a bond had been forged, not of blood, not of race, but of promise. The storm outside had passed, but another storm was waiting. The human knew it. This world would not stay silent if he chose to fight. For them, others would come, danger would follow, but he was ready. He looked once more at the sleeping children, and then at the girl, who finally closed her eyes in peace. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but it filled the room. "I will not fail you." And in that promise, the darkness was no longer just darkness, it was the beginning of dawn. The night faded slowly. The storm outside grew weaker, and pale light began to break through the cracks in the broken roof. The air smelled of wet stone and smoke, but it also carried something new. The promise of morning. The human opened his tired eyes. He had not slept. Instead, he had watched the children breathe, listened to their weak coughs, counted every fragile heartbeat in the silence, and guarded them as if danger would strike at any moment. Beside him, the alien girl stirred. Her head still resting against his arm, she blinked slowly. Her glowing eyes softened when they met his. For the first time, her face carried no fear, only relief. She whispered, "You stayed." Her voice cracked with emotion, as if she had dreamed it would all vanish by morning. But he was still there, solid, steady, unshaken. "I said I would," the human replied, his voice low but strong. "I keep my promises." The girl's lips curled into a small smile, a smile that looked fragile, but beneath it was something powerful. Trust. The children began to wake one by one. Their glowing eyes blinked at the faint light of dawn. Some groaned softly, some stretched weak arms. The youngest reached for the girl, crying softly until she lifted him into her lap. The human watched the way she cared for them. She was young, far too young, yet she had carried the weight of a parent. Her shoulders bent but never broken. One of the older boys tried to rise again. This time, he did not ask if the human would hurt them. He only asked, "Will you come back when you leave today?" The human looked at him firmly. "I will not just come back, I will bring food and medicine, I will bring what you need." The boy's eyes widened, his lips parted, and for the first time he believed. The girl whispered, "You don't know what danger this will bring. If others find out you are helping us, they will come. They will punish you. They will punish us." Her words were heavy, but the human did not look away. "Then let them come," he said. I would rather fight for you than live in comfort while you suffer." His words spread through the room like fire. The children listened with wide eyes, hope flickered inside them like a candle refusing to die. The girl pressed her forehead against his arm, her tears wetting his sleeve. "You are not like the others," she whispered. "You are different. You are human." The sun climbed higher. Golden light slipped through the holes in the roof. It touched the children's faces. It touched the girl's silver hair. And for a moment, the broken shelter looked alive. Not a cage, but a place where something new had begun. The human rose to his feet. He looked at the children one last time before leaving, each pair of glowing eyes fixed on him, each silent face waiting for his next step. He felt the weight of their trust. It pressed heavy on his chest, but it also gave him strength. He turned to the girl, her small hand clutched his tightly. "Promise me again," she said. Her voice was firm now, not begging, not afraid, but demanding, as if she had found courage in his presence. The human knelt, looking into her glowing eyes. "I promise," he said. "By this dawn, by this bond, I will not fail you." She closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her soul. Her tears fell, but this time they were not born of sorrow. They were born of hope, hope she thought had died long ago. The children gathered close. Some clung to her. Some reached their weak hands toward him, not to stop him but to send him away with their trust. They did not have words strong enough to thank him, but their eyes spoke louder than voices, eyes that said, "You are ours now." The human straightened, his coat heavy with rain and tears, his heart heavier with the promise he carried. He stepped to the broken door, its rusted frame still standing against the storm. He pushed it open and looked out into the alley. The morning light cut through the shadows, revealing a path that was dangerous but necessary. He turned once more and saw the girl standing in the doorway, her silver hair shining in the light. Her glowing eyes steady, she whispered, "Go, but come back. You are the only one we have now." The human nodded, his voice calm. "You are not alone anymore. Not today. Not ever again." And with that, he stepped into the dawn, his figure moving forward into a world that had abandoned them, but now carried his promise. Behind him, the children leaned against the girl, holding on to her, holding on to the bond that had been forged. In the dark, the dawn had come, not just for the city, not just for the storm, but for them, for the forgotten ones, for the alien girl who had run through the rain, and for the human who had chosen to follow her. It was the dawn of a new bond, one that would not break, one that would fight against the shadows, one that would carry them all into tomorrow.